the Jim Burkert Financial Workshop Tour here. And just as a disclaimer, this is the Netflix special edition. We are recording this one to broadcast to all employees once the tour is over. So just keep that in mind. This is supposed to be informal, conversational. If you have questions, great. Just remember that your questions will be memorialized in the video special here, okay?
Is it already going?
I don't know, probably.
I think when you get to be older, I mean, you can do so much more when you're younger.
Yes,
To get ready
Yes.
to retire.
yes. So great segue, Meg. So that it warms my heart that we have this many people here. I think that this is as many as we had at any of them last year. Yeah, we got a nice age mix here, and I will say, back when I was in my 20s and teaching, somebody drugged me to one of these, and I started a 403b account, and like to this day, it was the best decision I've made as an adult. So as you hear this and you go back to your schools and your positions, encourage people to come to these, because saving, any voluntary saving that you do and make towards your retirement, you just can't imagine the future impact it's going to have. And this is one of those things where you can't ever get the time back either. So,
You know, my husband gave me advice when I first started teaching at Concord, but 16 and 2/3% of my salary away, because at that time it was the legal limit of what you do, and it is before taxes, so you don't really miss it as much.
yeah,
And so, I mean, then every year you just update it.
yeah. All right, Jim.
All right, thank you very much. Again, my name is Jim Burkert. I'm with Vantage Point Financial Group. I'm located right downtown Elkhart. It's about a 10-minute drive, depending on lights and trains. So anyhow, some of you, as I just was made note of, some of you know my children. I had Thomas, he's now a freshman at Purdue. Maggie is a senior, and then Adam is a freshman here, and he's the black sheep, the wild card, whatever you want to call it. He keeps us on our toes. But again, Jim Burkert, I handle the 401A here at Concord. Also, for some of you, I don't want to get into too much detail on it, but we also handle the VIVA. Not everyone has that, so we're not going to talk about that today. But do handle the 401A. Also, I'm one of the 403B providers. But again, this today by no means is a sales pitch. This is about what you have as an educator or working for Concord Schools and how you can take ownership in planning for retirement. And it doesn't matter if you're 22, 42, 62, whatever, you do need to plan. You do need to know what you have, what benefits you have, because one day you will get to a point and you want to retire. That may be tomorrow, that might have been last week, it might be in a few years. Whatever it is, you do want to plan and be prepared. So, do we have, or do you have? Okay, all right, perfect. So, one other thing, just a little bit of background. I was also a teacher. So I taught for 13 years out in Middlebury. I was an 8th grade social studies teacher, a high school U.S. history teacher for 2 years. And then I also coach tennis out there. If you do see me around here, I do love attending the events here. If it's football, basketball, my kids play tennis, so I do kind of help out a little bit with that. And I'll be back here tonight for the choir concert. So anyhow, so with that, we'll go ahead and get started. Again, we're just going to go through different aspects. Again, you don't have to know every little detail about what you have, but know the accounts that you have. One thing I am going to point out, this little half sheet that I did give you, these are different websites where you do have accounts that I encourage you, if you've never done any sort of logging in, please do that. so at least you know what you have. And we'll touch base on these as we go through this presentation. So your options for retirement. You do have several different options as you are an educator and working for Concord. So the first thing I'm going to talk about, Social Security. So with Social Security, if you've never logged into your Social Security account, I encourage you to do that. The website is on here. It takes you about 10 minutes to do so. It is not something that you can just quickly go to, create a login, and boom. It does take about 10 minutes. You do have to answer, I believe, 3 to 5 security questions on yourself. It will ask you something to the effect, you took out a car loan in 2012, who was the lender? And it will give you an option. It may ask you grew up on this, or you once lived on this street in this certain county. So you do have to pass that. I did have somebody fail their own test. That is true. You just have to wait 24 hours then before you can go back and try it. It's no big deal because they forgot some lender from years and years ago. So anyhow, but please log in so you at least know what your Social Security benefits look like. One other thing I want to highly recommend, please do not count on Social Security to be your only source of retirement income. It's not meant for that. So with Social Security, there's always that talk, oh, it's going to run out. I think it may have been even brought up in the State of the Union address last night. We're not going to talk politics, but my belief is I do believe Social Security will always be there. I do. We're continue to pay into it. Yes, there might be some things that have to be tweaked with it, but I do believe it will always be there. Again, I said I wasn't going to talk politics, but a politician's number one goal is to get reelected. And if a politician says, I'm taking that away from you, they're probably not going to get reelected. So I do believe it will be there, but log in. They no longer send out statements. You can see what your Social Security would look like at different ages. You can take it as early as 62, and then it goes on. And on here, it talks about different ages when you can get Social Security.
Jim, if I could add real quick.
Yes.
If nothing else, if you've never logged into Social Security before, it's fun to do because you can see your lifetime taxable earnings.
Yes.
It is cool to pull that report, and then you can put it on your own spreadsheet, and
Yes, it will show you.
it's super
year by
simple
year.
to do it.
Yes. So you can see that. And the other downside to that, if there is a year that you would dispute saying, hey, I know I earned more than that, I hate to say it, you're probably going to have to call the IRS, and that's not a fun task. So anyhow, but these are just different ages. You can take Social Security as early as age 62. You do get a partial benefit, as you can see here, but then each year you delay, it's about an 8% increase on what you will receive. If you were born after 1960, I say that because that's myself, you were born after 1960, your full retirement age is 67. And then it will continue to increase. If you get to age 70 and have not started Social Security yet, take it. It's not going to go up anymore. Take it. And again, there's no right or wrong year or age to take Social Security. Somebody say, well, if I take it at 62, I'm getting penalized. It's not as much. It's not penalized. You're just not getting as much. But I do have people, depending on their life situation, 62 is the right age to start. Other people say, hey, I'm working till at least 65 or 67. I don't need to start it. I don't want to have impact on any sort of taxes. I don't want to start it. That's fine. But at least talk it over. If you have a spouse, talk it over with your spouse. If you work with a financial advisor, talk it over with them. If you don't have one, I'm happy to help. So anyhow, you do want to look at this as a piece or a part of your retirement income. But again, you're not penalized by taking it 62. I have people say, hey, the longevity in my family is 68. I'm not going to live much longer. I want to take as much money as possible. So I'm going to start it at 62. That's perfectly fine. And I do see educators who retire before 65 because of other benefits that they have, and they started at 62. That's perfectly fine. But just understand, if you started at 62 and then you're now 67, you say, hey, I want to do this over because I know I would get more money. You can't. Once you start it, you can't do that. And I will say this, when it does come time to start Social Security, there's two ways that the process, you can do it online. You can go through, it's not that difficult. I've walked clients through it. We sat in my office, we walked right through it. Or you can set an appointment, and I encourage you to set the appointment. Don't go to Social Security and take a number. Set the appointment. They are very helpful. The office is right in Elkhart on Waterfall Drive. They are very helpful. I've sat with a client. They just wanted another set of ears in on the meeting. I sat with them. They were super helpful with great information. So don't be discouraged if you say, I don't want to do this online. I want to talk with somebody. The Social Security office is very helpful. So again, these are just different ages. It's up to you. As you are planning your retirement, you do want to determine, hey, when is the best age for you to take it? So if somebody says, oh, you can't take it at 60, oh, yeah, you can. It might be best for you. So one piece there, Social Security. Please, if you've never done it, log in. Please do that. Okay, so that's one part of retirement income. Another part is working in education, the Indiana Public Retirement System. This is an awesome benefit that educators have. That people who do work in the private sector, pensions are a thing of the past. That is something that you have an option for being an educator in Indiana. This is another piece of information. If you've never done this, I highly encourage you to log into your teacher retirement fund. That's the inprs.voya.com. There's several different ways to get to it, but you do want to log in. Please, 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 please take ownership of this benefit that you have, because it is a great benefit that the state does offer. So there's two working parts to your, and this has changed a little bit. I want to see something here. There's two different plans. The hybrid plan, which I would say the majority of you have. There is a new My Choice. I don't know if anybody has it. I don't want to get into that too much, but I will go back here. But there are two working parts if you have that hybrid, which I would say the majority of educators have. You have a defined benefit plan and a defined contribution plan. Basically, the way I like talking about it, if you see your statement, you have a lump sum, and then you also have what will be your pension, that defined benefit. But there are two working parts. You have a lump sum, so if you get a statement, you're going to see a number, whatever that is. It could be, depending how long you've been in education, it could be 50, 100, 150,000, depending how long it is. If you're new, it might only be 10,000. But there is a lump sum number. That is not your pension. You have another working part there. That is your pension that's going to be based on, I'm going to get to this, but it's going to be based on your highest 5 average salaries multiplied by 1.1%. multiplied by years of service. I'll use myself as an example. I taught 13 years. You have to teach 10 years to be vested in the pension. So I taught 13 years. I have my highest 5 salaries. They're not going to go up. Nothing against educators, but I probably won't go back to teaching. No offense. So my 5 highest salaries are set. And then I taught 13 years, I'll multiply it by 1.1%. I figured it out, I believe my pension's gonna be around $500 a month. So something's better than nothing. Again, that's something I can't count on. Can't live on that for the rest of my life, I get that, but hey, it is a pension that you have for the rest of your life.
Jim, there is one unique thing about Concord I want to point out, because when I sent this information out, a couple of people asked me this. we contribute 3% of your earnings to your defined contribution, which is the lump sum. Somebody said, yeah, but the math isn't adding up. When I look at my paycheck, I see $250 every paycheck that is going to PERF, but when I do the math, that lump sum is a lot smaller. That 250 is not only the amount that we're sending on your behalf to your defined contribution, it also includes our pension obligation for you. That money is not going into your defined contribution account. It's going into a separate account that funds your future pension benefit.
But it shows as one amount.
But it shows as one amount on there. So if you do the math, it comes out to like 11.2% or whatever it is. And some people are panicking like, well, that money is gone. It's not gone. You just don't see the pension dollar amount.
Thanks for putting that. Yes, that's important to remember. But again, that pension will be there. So, and we'll get more into this, both of these parts of the Indiana State Retirement Plan. But this is a great option. But understand, because I have teachers who come and talk to me, and they think that lump sum, well, that's my pension. No, that's another working part. Those are two separate benefits that you have through the state. And you can calculate this. I do believe once a year as well, the state will send you, it's like a 2 to 4 page brochure that really breaks this down. So as you get in here, what this talks about when you do start your pension, I don't want to get into this too much, but you do have options on how you can take that money. You can take a single life, or here it says straight life. That's going to be the most money that you can get. So that basically means when you start your pension, however long you live, if you live 2 months or 32 years in retirement, it's going to be paid to you. But once you pass away, it's done. Now, if you are married and you want to make sure your spouse receives your pension after you pass, there's different options. You can do 100% survivor. You can do 66 and 2/3, 50. It's up to you. Just understand the most money that you can get is straight life, and then it will go down a little bit. What's great is when you do get to that time and you are applying for your benefits with the state, you will go online, you will complete an online application, and it will go through. It will give you the dollar amount specifically for you of what each of these would look like. So you don't have to try to calculate it on your own. It will give it specifically for you what 5-year period, certain straight life, and all that is. So that is nice. This is something you really don't have to worry about right now. This is something when you do get to retirement and you want to start taking your pension, you sit down, do the online application. I've completed hundreds of these with clients. And it's a pretty simple process, but it is nerve-wracking when it is you and it's the first time and really the only time you're going to be going through it. You want to make sure you get it right. So anyhow, it's great. It's a very easy system, but something that obviously, if you work with an advisor myself, I'm happy to sit down with you. Yes?
Survivor, is that strictly spouse?
It is a spouse. Yep. The only time it could be paid out to a non-spouse, if I go back here, that 5-year period certain, that means, let's say you started taking your pension in a year 2, you pass away for the next 3 years, 5 years, it could go to whatever beneficiary would be listed. That would be the only time a non-spouse. So very good question. And then your lump sum. When you do retire, your lump sum, you have options with it. I would say the majority of people that I work with, or the majority of people that I talk to, they take that lump sum and they roll it over to an IRA. And then you have control of it. You do have the option to roll it over to a state annuity where you would get a monthly income. So basically like a second pension. The reason the majority of people roll that portion over to an IRA, they have control and then they can withdraw when they want. If you would roll it over to an annuity that makes a monthly payment and you need extra cash in retirement for whatever life event, you can't call the state and say, can I take a 5-month advance and get the next? No, they won't let you do that. But if you have an IRA and you need to take out extra money for that life event, you can do that. So the majority of people roll it to an IRA. When you do that, it is a non-taxable event, so you would not be taxed when it goes to the IRA, which is an individual retirement account. And then when you do take money out to use, it is a taxable event. And when you do take your pension, that's also taxed. And you can have taxes withheld as you are going through the benefit process when you're going through the online application. So, one reason I do want you to create a login, and many of you may have already done this, that lump sum money that you have, it is growing inside there. And you have opportunities to invest that money. Depending on your risk tolerance, age, you can invest in any way you want. When I started teaching back in '95, they had a default fund, which you would go into, it was the stable value fund. So if you've been teaching for a while, and I'm trying to think, it's probably been 5 to 8 years ago they've changed that default fund. But if you've never looked at this, you do want to go in and see what you're invested in. Because the stable value fund, it is a conservative fund. You're not going to lose money. So last year it would have been great. But over time, you do want that money working for you. And you have different options here from, as it says, and I'm not going to get into each of these, but the large cap, small cap, international. The new default fund today is a target date fund, and it's based on your age and when you would turn 65. So if your target date fund was 2040, that doesn't mean you have to teach till 2040. It's just based on your age. It will be invested more aggressively now, but each year as you get closer to 2040, it will become more conservative. So, which is good because it is invested more aggressively when you're younger, when you can take on more risk. So again, if you've looked at your accounts over the past year, 2022 was not a good year for investments. But 2020 and 2021 were much better. But when you start looking over time, you should be able to average, depending on how aggressive, 7 to 8% on average. If you were more aggressive, you could potentially do a little bit better. But it is important to look at that and not get so anxious when you have a year like 2022. The good news with 2022, while you're working and money is going into your account, you have to think the share prices are down, so as money's going in, you are buying more shares. The quantity of shares that you own has gone up. Yes, the value's gone down on paper, but you own more shares. Those share prices will go up. They will go up over time. But everybody says, oh, this time is different. We can say that throughout history. Anytime when you're investing, oh, this time is different. Oh, this time is different. You can look back through history, and it was always, oh, this time is different. I mean, you think back, we can go back clear to the 70s. You have a president resign. Oh, this time is different. We'll never get out. Oh, well, we got out of it. You could go, you have a Gulf War. I mean, you had 9/11. I mean, 2 planes flying into a building. Never happened in history. Wall Street shut down for 4 days. I mean, they stopped trading. Oh, we got out of it. 2008. Oh, it's the second, this is the worst since the Great Depression. We got out of it. Oh, the pandemic. Oh, that we've never experienced. We come out of it. You can see the pattern. So you do have to somewhat keep your emotions out of it, but you want to be diversified. So, as you are planning for and building up to retirement, here's an example. So, one great thing about educators, when you have a pension, you have Social Security, those are 2 set amounts that you will have for the rest of your life. That is a great source of retirement income. So you have your Social Security, as it says here, average. What's nice, you log into Social Security, you can get an idea of what yours will look like at 62, 65, 67, 70. You can help, at least get an idea of what your pension will look like when you look at your 5 highest salaries, multiplied by that 1.1%, multiplied by years of service. So you can get an idea of what your guaranteed income is going to look like. One thing, if you don't jot anything else down, jot this down, I always say this, as you are starting to look at this, you're thinking, oh, what will my income look like? If you can go into retirement debt-free, you will be way ahead of the ballgame. You will make it. Not saying you won't if you have debt, but if you can go into retirement debt-free, that means no credit cards, no mortgage, no car loans. You're always going to have bills. You're never going to get out of that. But if you can go in debt-free where you don't have those set amounts, you are going to be way ahead of the ballgame. You will be fine. So, moving on here, we've talked about Social Security. We've talked about your state benefits with the pension and then the lump sum. And then the other aspect of your retirement savings does fall on your shoulders. Not that those others don't, but here are other opportunities for you to save for retirement. Couple things with the school. You have the 401A. The school on your behalf is putting money into your account, which is awesome. Another great benefit. You also have the opportunity to contribute to a 403B. That's where you would have money withheld from your paycheck to go into a retirement account. And there are, and I always say 6, but there might be more. Is there 6 or 7 providers?
I thought there were 6, and then somebody brought to my attention that they had an Ameriprise account. I'm like, no, you don't. And they did.
Okay.
And so I called Ameriprise. They're like, yeah, we're one of your 403.
Okay. All right. So you may be
There's
working
7.
with one. I think there's Horace Mann, there's AXA, there's Security Benefit. And I'm going to leave some, American Fidelity. And if you're working with them, awesome. Aspire, that's all. Work with them, keep working with them, keep putting money away. One aspect of the 403B, and we'll talk about it here, relatively new over the last, I think, 3 years. You have an option on the 403B to have a pre-tax withholding or a post-tax or Roth option. So a Roth option is awesome. Now, if you need tax savings today, you want to do the pre-tax. That means easy math here. You get paid, gross pay $1,000. If you have $100 withheld, you're now only taxed on $900. That's a tax savings today. Just understand when you take your money out in retirement, you're going to pay taxes. On a Roth option, you get paid $1,000, you pay your taxes, and then your $100 goes in. Understand though, when you take money out of that account, it will come out tax-free in retirement. The easiest way for me to explain which is better, if you get a tax refund in April, do the Roth option. You don't need tax savings today. When you get that tax refund, it is great getting that check, but understand it's not because the government likes you and they're paying you extra money. That's your money that they've been holding. So please utilize that Roth option. And I always try to say this, I would give anything if I could go back and talk to my 25-year-old self and say, hey, start putting money in a Roth. Because there's going to be a slide on here that can show you the impact of saving over time and tax deferral and what it can do. And so, again, the 403B, some of you may have an IRA that you're saving on your own outside of the school. And again, you can do a pre-tax or a Roth IRA. So again, just other options for you to save. If you say, well, what's better, doing the 403B or doing an IRA outside? Well, the 403B through the school, you can actually, the IRS allows you to put more away if you wish. In addition, the convenience of the 403B, it's coming out of your paycheck. You don't see it. It's just part of your, pay cycle. So it just happens. With an IRA, well, I got to set it up, or do I want to set it up coming out of my checking account? Make it easy on yourself. Utilize the 403B, but you can do the IRA as well. As I talked about, these are the different tax savings. Just understand, if you owe taxes right now, come April, you're always like, oh, I hate writing this check to the IRS. Well, if you do the pre-tax, that lowers your taxable income, so that can help. If you say which one's better, they're going to grow the same. It's not like, oh, well, which one's going to get the best growth? They're going to grow the same if you're investing in the same exact investment. It's just how it's taxed. So why does this matter? Like I said, one day we want to retire. Like I said, it could be last week, it could be tomorrow, it could be in a few years. And if we went through and had time, everybody's retirement's going to be different. Some of you will say, hey, I'm going to stay right here in Elkhart, Indiana. This is where my family is. I want to be with my kids, my grandkids. I don't want to move. Other people are going to say, I'm tired of gray, snow in the winter. I'm going to be south. Yes, I'm getting out. So whatever it is, but it matters so you can have your retirement the way you want to. So a couple things as we start looking towards retirement. As it says, the average age is 62. One thing we were talking about this before, people are living longer. I mean, there's the possibility you could live easily 30 plus years in retirement. I just spoke with someone yesterday who is 94, will be turning 95 in October. And I mean, she is sharp as a tack, and who knows? She could easily get to 100. So people are living longer, so you do need to save. The great benefit of being an educator, you do have a pension. If you live to 102, that pension will pay out to you. So that is a great benefit to have. And it's amazing when you look at these numbers on, spouses, if 1 and 2 spouses will live to 96. So those are the things you do have to plan for. As we know, and we've noticed over the past year, things do go up in cost. So as you do plan for retirement, you do have to think about the cost and your living cost. If it's whatever it is, medical car, one thing you do want to think about in the back of your mind is long-term care, which would be assisted living, in-home care, or nursing home. Keep in mind, Medicare does not pay for long-term care expenses. Medicare does not. Medicaid does, but that's after you've exhausted all your resources. So keep that in mind as you start thinking about long-term care. And when you think, well, what is there a way to combat that? Oh, I'll just give my money away. I always have people, I'll just have my family take me out back and shoot me. They're not going to do that, and that's not an option. So that is something you do want to plan for. And just to give you an idea, I did read a stat here in the last, I think it was week, the average cost, if you are in a full-blown nursing care facility, average cost right now is around $8,000 a month.
More popular than
Yeah, so, and it can range. So that is going to go up in cost. So anyhow, one thing here, the question I often get, there was an advertisement campaign, about 5 years ago about what is my number? How much will I need in retirement? As a teacher, we always dislike when we ask a question, the student comes back with a question. However, that's what I'm going to do. If somebody says, well, how much do I need in retirement? I'm going to come back with a question. Well, how much income do you want in retirement? And that's going to be your biggest decision. Because if you say, hey, I want $70,000 a year in retirement. Okay. Well, from your pension and Social Security, if you get $40,000, well, you need to meet that gap of $30,000. And understand, if you say, well, all right, well, I saved $100,000, well, that's going to get you 3.5, 4 years, and then what? So you don't want to be in retirement and say, oh, I'm now 68, I got to go back to the classroom. I don't think you want to do that. And some people may want to keep teaching longer, but anyhow, you don't want that to have to rule, hey, I am going to have to go back working. So anyhow, but these different accounts where you talk about pension, Social Security, those things that you have, the 401A, the 403B, IRAs, other savings that you may have. So, this one slide I like pointing out because I always like to say, as we are saving and we need to fill that gap, it's never too late or too early to start. I mentioned I'd love to go back to my 25-year-old self and say, hey, you need to start putting more money away. This is just an example of putting money away and what it looks like and the impact that it can have. I know when I did start out teaching when I was 24, there is no way for me to make ends meet. I could put $100 a pay away. I couldn't do it. There's no way. But what you want to do is start somewhere. If it's $20 a pay, if it's $25 a pay, start somewhere. And then always, another note you ought to write down, give yourself a retirement pay raise. And what I mean by that, if you start out with $25, just make a note, either every quarter or semi-annual or every year, once a year, I am going to raise that $10. So first year I'm going to put in 25. The next year I'm going to put in 35. And then the next year I'm going to put in 45. You're not going to notice that jump. You'll notice it on the first paycheck. After that, you won't. If you go from $25 to $100, that's impactful. But if you slowly do it over time, that can make a big difference. What I want to point out here, two things. If you say, hey, I'm 5 to 8 years from retirement, I haven't done much. If I save $35,000, that's not gonna, I can't live off that in retirement and live 30 years. I get it, but you know what? Having $35,000, it could buy a furnace, it can help buy a car, it can help some other life event that you don't have to go out and borrow money for. So it's something. Something's better than nothing. What I want to point out down here to that 25-year-old self, that shows you've put in around $100,000 on the average growth. It says on a 6% performance. You put in around 100, you end up with over 400,000. So we'll just say 100. There's $300,000 of growth that's never been taxed. If you did that in a Roth IRA, it comes out tax-free. That $300,000 never been taxed, it comes out tax-free. I have yet to sit down with a client who says, I'd love to pay taxes. How can I pay more? No one ever says that. I don't think. But anyhow, that is where you could utilize a Roth. One nice thing also about Concord here, you say, hey, I need that pre-tax today to help that tax benefit. You can even separate it. You can say, hey, I'm going to put $100 in the pre-tax. I do want some going into Roth. I'm going to put 50 in the Roth. You can do both, which is nice to be able to have that option. So you can do that here at Concord. If you have questions on it, Stephen, I can help you. But you do have those options. And then all this is, it's just talking about the importance of starting early. We all know that. And then what it can eventually grow to. Some of these, I was just talking to Stephen before this, actually in 2023, we got word right at the end of the year, so this slide hasn't been updated. They have increased these amounts that you can contribute into your 403B and your IRA. Right now, for your IRAs, you can actually do $7,500 if you're over 50, $6,500 if you're under 50, and I believe the 403B jumped up to $22,500. It might be 21, but I believe it's 22. So if you wanted to max out that contribution. So how to take action. Couple things. Taking action, look these over. With your security benefit 401A, there is an app you can add to your phone. If you have a 403B with security benefit and the 401A, you would see all that on there. But taking action, just understand what you have. Like I said, log into Social Security, log into the Teacher Retirement Fund, look at your 401A. Look at those things just so you know what you have. But again, you start somewhere. Give yourself that retirement pay raise. As life happens, your life changes. There could be kids in there. There could be saving for college. There could many different aspects. But you want to keep doing those things. Don't interrupt your retirement. I get it. You're going to have kids. They're expensive. I know that. But you want to keep saving for retirement. Maybe you don't give yourself that retirement pay raise, but you keep doing what you're doing, which is perfectly fine. And then balancing risk as you do get older, as I talked about. The target date funds, they become more conservative as you get closer to retirement. But with that, you have to think, somebody asked me about, how are you getting more conservative with your investments? I'm 51. I don't plan on retiring at least till 65. I am going to see at least 3 or 4, probably 5 more ups and downs in these markets. You know what? I'm still with my retirement. I'm going to stay aggressive. Because I know, hey, when it's down, I'll put money in, it's going to buy it cheaper, and then it's going to go up. It feels good on paper. I'll be happy then when I'm looking at it, and it's a positive instead of a negative. But you do want to stay on course. Do not, when you have a year like we just went through, oh, I can't look at this. I got to take all my investments and I got to put it in the money market or on the sidelines. That's the worst thing you can do. Because I always have people, well, when are we getting out of this? When is this downturn going to be over? I wish I could tell you. If I could tell you that, we would all be living happily ever after. But the thing is, you stay the course. Side note, true story. Have a client. He couldn't handle the ups and downs of the market. Oh, I'm going to put my money on the sidelines. Oh, I'm going to get back in. Oh, I don't like this president. I'm going to take my money out. Oh, this president's better. I'm going to put my money back in. Then same course. He averaged over a 10-year period, honestly, around 3%. It's positive. Another client, same exact type of account, very similar investments, left it. 9% average. You see those statistics all the time. I even pointed it out to this person, and it's just like, you have to stay the course. Doesn't always feel good, but it's better. Not saying you don't change as you do get closer to retirement, but in these down times, don't panic and say, I'm putting everything on the sideline. Later years in life, again, making sure you know what you have. You can shift some of your investments. I'm not saying you go completely to money market, but you can shift it. One thing to keep in mind as you're looking at these ages, when you do retire, if it's at 62 or 65 or 70, as I mentioned, you're going to be living hopefully a long retirement life. Your money still needs to be working for you. You can't just say, I'm now retired, let's just put it in the bank and just let it sit in the savings account. It still needs to be earning for you. It doesn't have, you don't have to be trying to go for those 8, 9, 10% returns, but you do want to be earning that 3, 4, 5, 6% in retirement. These are just different ages when you can take money. From a 403B, you can start as early as 55. 59 and a half is retirement accounts, the IRAs. 65 is Medicare. 70, as I talked about, was when you should, if you haven't started Social Security, when you want to take it. Finally, 72, it just changed this year, it's now 73, when you have to take money out of retirement accounts if you haven't started yet. And so that's called a required minimum distribution. One thing to keep in mind, because I often have this discussion with teachers, they do want to, or they are able to retire, because you can start your pension as early as 55. If it's rule of 85, you may have heard of it. Years of experience plus your age. If it equals 85, you can start your pension. And that sounds great. However, if you retire at 55, start your pension, and you say, well, I have other retirement assets, you got to remember health insurance. Excuse me. Medicare would not start till 65. You could go out on the market. If you retire from Concord, you do have the opportunity to purchase the health insurance here, but you are paying for it, so there is a cost to it. So keep that in mind. If you retire at 62, you still have to bridge that gap for health insurance for 3 more years. So just those are some things to keep in mind when it comes thinking about retirement. Or if your spouse is working, maybe you're able to go on their health insurance. So if it's before 65.
And like, just so you know, if you retire employee only, Plan B, $600 a month. Family plan, over $1,000.
So something to keep in mind as you are starting to plan. So again, just checklist getting started. The big thing is taking control and ownership of what you have. And do not be afraid to ask questions. If it's to Stephen, if it's to me, if it's to your financial advisor. And don't say, well, I don't know anything. True story, I've had teachers come in with a stack of envelopes, unopened. They say, here's my accounts. I have no idea what I have. We open it up, we get them organized. But just take ownership in what you have so you understand. Do you have to know exactly how every single investment works? No, you don't have to know that. But just understand, hey, I am going to get a pension. I am going to have a lump sum. Hey, I know at 62, my Social Security is going to be this. And hey, I've been putting money into a 403B and it's a Roth. And hey, that's great. I can take money out of there tax-free. Those are the simple things you need to know. So if you ever have any questions, please feel free to contact me. One thing I do want to point out too, and these are some just different things that are available to you. One thing I want to point out, because I always get this question, and some people say, hey, I do work with an advisor, or hey, I don't want to work with anybody, I do this on my own. But I do want to understand the teacher retirement a little bit better and the 401A. I'd like to come and talk to you about how much is it going to cost. It will cost you $0. If you come and sit down and say, hey, can you walk me through the state website and through my teacher retirement fund and explain this 401A and help me log into Social Security? Could you do? Yes. I will not send you a bill. So please feel free to contact me. I do have cards up here. It has my office number, cell number, email. Please feel free to contact me. And again, if you work with an advisor, they are going to be happy to help you on any of the things that I talked about today. But again, it would cost you, it does not, and you don't have to, you can come in one time, you can come in 3 times. It's not going to cost you anything. So I appreciate your time. And I will say this, we do have several more of these financial essentials presentations. It's the same thing. If you want to come back and listen, you're more than welcome, but they're not building on one another. But if there's something you say, hey, I might come back next month just in case I miss something, it's going to be the same presentation basically. So don't think you have to go to each one of them. So again, I appreciate your time this afternoon. If you do know someone in your building, you'd say, hey, just go listen. It's worth the time to get the information. Please pass that along because we'll be here again tomorrow. And then there's 2 dates. It's March 7th and 9th next month that we'll be doing this again. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. If you want to stick around, I'll stay for a little bit. So, but again, thank you. Appreciate your time and what you do because I know it's not easy doing what you do.
Thanks, Jim.
No, thank you.